twin suns were setting behind the red hills when Jack leaned on the fence, watching the sky glow orange and gold. His ranch, Dust Creek, stood silent around him, just the wind, the dry soil, and a lonely heart waiting for something new, something human. After 5 long years alone on the frontier planet Varan 5, Jack had finally sent for a mail-order bride from Earth. He had dreamed about her for months. He imagined her gentle smile, her soft voice, her kindness, a woman who would make this lonely planet feel like home again. That evening, he cleaned his hands, fixed his best shirt, and waited near the landing pad. The old transport ship came down through a cloud of red dust, its engines whining like tired beasts. Jack's heart beat fast. He took off his hat and smiled, but when the ramp opened, his smile froze. The woman who stepped out was not human. She was tall and slender, her skin shining like polished silver. Her long white hair blew in the hot wind. Her eyes glowed faint blue, cold and sharp. She wore a long, dark coat and a heavy belt with a strange metal gun hanging from it. Jack blinked, confused, thinking there must be some mistake. "Ma'am, I think you're on the wrong transport," he said slowly. She looked at him for a long moment, then said in a low, calm voice, "No, I'm here for you." Before Jack could answer, a sharp sound cut through the air, a whistle, then the roar of engines. 3 black hoverbikes came flying fast from the west. Each rider wore armor marked with the symbol of a skull. The woman's expression changed. "They found me," she whispered. Then she drew her weapon. The gun wasn't like anything Jack had ever seen. Blue fire burst from the barrel, striking one of the bikes and sending it spinning into the dust. The other 2 opened fire. Red plasma bolts tore across the landing pad, setting the dry grass ablaze. Jack dove behind a sandcart, heart pounding. "What in the name of Earth is going on?" he shouted. "Stay down!" The silver woman ordered, firing again. Another bike exploded, scattering burning metal. The 3rd rider jumped off his bike and aimed a rifle. He shouted, "Lyra, you can't run forever. The bounty on your head is worth more than this whole ranch." Jack's ears rang. He peeked from behind the cart. Lyra, so that was her name, moved like lightning, spinning and shooting, her coat swirling in the wind. The last rider fell silent in the sand. Smoke rose from the burning wrecks. Jack stood slowly, dust covering his face. "You mind telling me what just happened?" he asked. Lyra holstered her gun, her voice calm but cold. "You were expecting a bride? You got an outlaw instead." Jack stared at her, speechless. "An outlaw? Why here? Why me?" "I needed a name," she said. "A transport was heading here under a human bride's identity. I took her place." Jack took a step back. "You kidnapped her?" "She's safe," Lyra said quickly. "But I had no choice. They would have killed me if I didn't disappear." He didn't know if he should believe her, but the scorch marks on his barn and the smell of burning sand told him one thing. This woman brought danger with her. "Listen," she said softly, noticing his fear. "I'll leave by morning. I just need a place to rest for the night." Jack hesitated. He looked at her tired eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly, and something inside him changed. She wasn't just dangerous, she was running from something worse. "Fine," he said quietly. "You can stay in the barn. But if you try anything, I'll make you regret it." Lyra nodded once. "Fair enough." As night fell, Jack watched her from the porch. She sat in the barn doorway, staring at the stars. The flames from the destroyed hoverbike still glowed faintly in the distance. Who was she really? Why was she hunted? And what kind of trouble had just landed on his doorstep? He thought he wanted a peaceful life, a quiet wife, and days filled with calm. Instead, fate had sent him a silver-skinned outlaw with a gun that could burn the sky. And as he stood under the alien stars, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed forever. The first light of morning spread across the red desert, turning the sand golden and bright. But inside the barn, darkness still lingered. Jack opened the door quietly and saw the silver-skinned woman sitting on a pile of hay. Her coat was off, her arm bandaged with a strip of torn fabric. She looked tired but alert, like a wild animal waiting for danger to return. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of the wind moved through the barn. Finally, Jack said, "You said your name's Lyra, right? You better start explaining why bounty hunters burned my ranch last night." Lyra looked up slowly. Her voice was calm but heavy. "They call me an outlaw, but I'm not what they say. I worked for the Syndicate, the alien trade guild that runs half this planet. They ordered me to destroy a mining colony because the miners refused to pay tax. I refused to kill them. The syndicate called that treason. Jack frowned, leaning on a wooden beam. So you're on the run for not killing people? She nodded once. Yes, I saved lives, and for that they want mine. Jack didn't answer. He walked outside, watching the wind move across the dusty fields. His ranch was half burned. The fence was gone, his crops turned to ash. He felt anger rising, but he couldn't tell if it was anger at her or at himself for feeling pity. Lyra stepped out behind him, quiet but confident. You didn't turn me in last night, she said. Why? Jack sighed. Maybe because you fought to protect me. Maybe because I don't like seeing anyone hunted like an animal. Her glowing eyes softened for a moment. Then you're a rare kind, human. Before Jack could reply, a sharp whistle echoed through the air. He froze. He knew that sound. It was a tracking drone. He looked up and saw a small metallic sphere scanning the ground, its red light sweeping across the ranch ruins. They found us again, Lyra whispered. Jack grabbed his rifle. Barn, now! They ducked inside as the drone hovered lower. Lyra pulled out a strange cube from her belt, pressed a button, and the air around them shimmered. Signal jammer, she explained. It'll confuse them for a few minutes, but not long. Jack glanced at her alien weapon, then at her steady hands. You've done this before, haven't you? Too many times, she said softly. The drone passed overhead, its light fading into the distance. Silence returned, but it was not peace. Lyra sat on a wooden crate, breathing deeply. They won't stop, she said. Once they mark a bounty, they chase until death. Not just me. They'll go after anyone who helped me. That means you. Jack's heart sank. So I'm Mark II now? She nodded. I'm sorry. He laughed bitterly. Great, I wanted a bride. Instead, I got an alien gunfight and a death warrant. Lyra smiled faintly, the first smile he'd seen. If it makes you feel better, I didn't plan this either. That smile stayed with him longer than he expected. By afternoon, they packed supplies, water, ammo, and food. Jack loaded his old hover wagon. Lyra helped, moving quickly despite her injury. We need to leave before night, she said. There's a small town called Dust Haven, 3 days west. I know someone there who can erase our signal tags. Jack raised an eyebrow. Our? She looked at him. You saved me, Jack. The syndicate will see you as my ally. If they find you here, they'll kill you too. He hesitated, looking at his broken ranch one last time. The place he built with years of sweat and hope was now just ashes and dust. Then I guess I'm going with you, he said quietly. They left before sunset, the sky painted with gold and purple. The road stretched wide and empty, with only the sound of engines and the whisper of wind. That night they stopped near a dried riverbed. Lyra sat close to the fire, staring at the stars. Jack poured water into a metal cup and handed it to her. You really believe someone framed you? He asked. I don't believe, she said softly. I know. The syndicate leader wanted the miners' land for his own trade routes. When I refused his order, he sent assassins. I ran before they could finish the job. Jack nodded slowly. And now you're here, hiding on a broken ranch with a stranger who can barely fix a water pump. She looked at him again, her voice gentle. You fixed more than that, Jack. You gave me a chance to breathe for one more day. He didn't know how to answer that. Far in the distance, a blue light blinked in the night sky. Lyra's expression hardened. They're coming again. Jack gripped his rifle. Then we better be ready this time. The fire crackled. The wind howled through the canyon. Somewhere in the darkness, engines hummed, growing louder by the second. The hunt was far from over, and both of them knew. By dawn, the desert would burn again. The morning air was sharp and dry when Jack woke to the distant rumble of engines. He rose fast, gripping his rifle, his eyes scanning the horizon. The sky was a pale orange, but far off. A dark cloud of dust moved toward them. They found us, Lyra said quietly, already checking the charge in her plasma gun. Her face was calm, but her eyes glowed with tension. 5 hover bikes. Maybe 6. We can't outrun them. Jack's heart thudded hard. Then we stand and fight. He'd never thought those words would leave his mouth, but something in him had changed since she came into his life. He wasn't just a lonely rancher anymore. Now he was a man trying to survive. They took positions near the rocky ridge. Lyra handed him a small metallic disc. Throw this when I say. It'll create a light burst. Blind them for a few seconds. Jack nodded, his fingers tight around the disc. The sound of engines grew louder, like a storm rolling through the desert. And then they came. 6 armored riders burst through the dust, their weapons flashing red light. Lyra moved like lightning, diving for cover and firing back with clean, precise shots. Blue fire met red in midair. The air cracked and hissed. Jack fired his shotgun, hitting one rider square in the chest. The man flew backward off his bike. "Now!" Lyra shouted Jack through the disc. It exploded in a flash so bright it burned the sky white. The attackers screamed, blinded, crashing into each other. Lyra didn't waste a second. She dashed forward, rolled, and fired 3 clean shots. 3 riders went down. The last 2 circled wide, firing wild plasma bolts that scorched the ground near Jack's feet. He ducked behind a rock, reloading as fast as he could. One of the bikes swooped low, trying to ram Lyra. She jumped onto it in one smooth move, kicked the rider off, and turned the bike's gun toward the last enemy. 1 shot, and silence filled the desert again. Only the hum of the fallen bikes and the smell of burned metal remained. Jack stepped out, breathing hard, his shirt soaked with sweat. "You fight like you've done this your whole life," he said. Lyra looked around at the wrecks. "Because I have," she replied softly. "But I never wanted to." Jack stared at the burning sand, thinking of the quiet life he'd lost, the ranch, the fields, the peace. He knew there was no turning back now. The syndicate would keep sending hunters until both of them were dead. They spent the next hour burying the bodies under the red dust. Jack didn't like leaving men to rot, even enemies. Lyra helped him in silence. When it was done, she said quietly, "You're the first human I've met who buries aliens with respect." He wiped the sweat from his brow. "Dead's dead. Doesn't matter what color the skin was." A small smile touched her lips. "Maybe that's why your kind is feared. Not because of your weapons, but because of your heart." Jack didn't know what to say, so he just checked his rifle again. "Let's move. More will come." They rode through the canyons, following the narrow path toward Dust Haven. The sun beat down hard, and the air shimmered with heat. Jack could feel exhaustion creeping in. But Lyra kept her pace steady, scanning every shadow. At noon, they stopped under a rock arch for rest. Jack offered her water, and for the first time, she didn't refuse. She looked at him and said, "You could still walk away, Jack. The syndicate doesn't know your name yet. You could leave me and rebuild your ranch." He looked at her, calm but firm, "And spend my days wondering if you made it out alive." "Not a chance." For a moment her eyes softened, her voice quieter. "You're a fool, human," he smiled. "Yeah, but I'm your fool now." They both laughed softly. It felt strange after so much fear. But that small laugh carried more warmth than the desert sun. As evening fell, they reached the edge of a dry plateau. From there, they could see the faint lights of Dust Haven far in the distance. Relief flickered in Jack's chest, but before they could move, Lyra froze. Her alien senses caught something. Low vibration in the ground, faint at first, then stronger. She whispered, "They're not bounty hunters this time." "It's worse." From the far ridge, dark shapes appeared. 3 syndicate gunships, their engines howling like beasts. Jack felt the air shake as dust rose in waves. "Can we make it to cover?" Lyra shook her head. "No. They'll see us no matter where we hide." She raised her plasma gun, eyes glowing brighter than before. "Then we fight again. But this time they'll remember who stood against them." Jack cocked his rifle, standing beside her. "Let them come." As the gunships descended, the desert wind screamed across the plain, carrying with it the scent of fire and fate. The human rancher and the alien outlaw stood side by side, ready to bleed for their freedom. And when the first bolt of plasma split the air, the battle for Dust Haven had already begun. The desert sky was blood red as the gunships circled above. The wind howled, carrying sand that cut like knives. Jack tightened his grip on the rifle while Lyra crouched beside a broken dune wall, checking the last energy cell for her weapon. "We can't take them head on," Jack said. "We won't," she replied. Her silver eyes scanned the ridge. "There's a canyon east, narrow. Their ships can't follow. We run now." Without another word, they sprinted toward the cliffs. Plasma bolts rained around them, turning the sand into glass. The ground shook with each blast. Jack stumbled, his boots slipping, but Lyra caught his arm and pulled him up. "Move!" she shouted. They reached the canyon mouth just as a bolt exploded behind them, throwing both into the dust. Jack's ears rang. When he opened his eyes, Lyra was already dragging him into cover. Inside the canyon, shadows swallowed them. The walls rose high and narrow, glowing faint blue from alien crystals embedded in the stone. Their footsteps echoed like whispers of ghosts. Jack breathed hard, gripping his rifle. You sure this path's safe? Safe? Lyra gave a dry laugh. Nothing safe on Varen 5. For hours they followed the winding path until the canyon opened into a hidden valley. Strange plants glowed under the fading light, and water dripped from stone edges, a rare sight in the desert world. Jack sat down, exhausted. We lost them? For now, she said, scanning the horizon. But Syndicate trackers don't give up. They'll follow our trail by morning. Jack poured water into 2 metal cups. Then we rest while we can. They sat in silence. The sound of dripping water was the only peace they'd felt in days. After a while, Jack asked quietly, Do you ever wish you'd done what they told you, just followed orders? Lyra looked at him. If I had, 100 miners and their children would be dead. I'd rather die than live with that. Her words hit him deep. He stared into the small fire. You're not like the stories say about aliens. They say you're cold, cruel, and you humans, she said softly. They say you're greedy and reckless. Yet here you are, risking your life for me. Jack smiled faintly. Guess we both break the rules. For a short while, the silence felt warm. Then a faint buzz broke the calm. Lyra's eyes sharpened. Drones, she whispered. Jack jumped to his feet. Tiny red lights appeared on the rocks. Scouts, small but deadly. Down, she shouted, firing a quick burst. The drones exploded, but more arrived, hundreds of them. The sky filled with their shrill sound. They ran again deeper into the valley. The ground turned rocky, forcing them to climb. Lyra led the way, moving fast despite her wound. Jack followed, slipping and cursing, but never stopping. At the top of the ridge, they found an old outpost, half-buried metal walls and a broken antenna. Human design, Jack said, surprised. Abandoned colony, Lyra replied. From your first settlers. They rushed inside. Dust covered the floors and rust crept over everything. But the place still had power. Lyra found the generator and hit the switch. Dim lights flickered on. Jack sealed the doors while Lyra connected her wrist device to the control panel. What are you doing? He asked. Sending false signals, she said quickly. If we trick their scanners, they'll think we're heading north. Outside, the sound of drones grew louder. The walls shook as they fired plasma blasts at the door. Sparks fell from the ceiling. Jack grabbed his shotgun. How long till it works? 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds. Lyra's hands moved fast across the screen. Then cover me. He fired at the door as it began to melt under the plasma. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. Lyra slammed her fist on the console. Done, the lights flickered. Outside, the drone suddenly shifted direction, flying north toward empty dunes. Jack stared. You did it? She smiled, breathing hard. I told you I was useful, he grinned back. Remind me never to doubt you again. They left the outpost before dawn, walking through the cold desert. Above them, the twin moons faded into pale morning. As they moved, Lyra said quietly, When this ends, you'll need a new life. The Syndicate will never stop hunting you. Jack looked at her, his expression firm. Then I'll make them regret coming. She glanced at him with something close to admiration. Humans, she said softly. You never know when to quit, he smiled. That's our secret. Far behind them, the horizon burned with the glow of distant engines. The hunt was still on, but as they disappeared into the rising sun, one thing became clear. Jack and Lyra were no longer just running, they were fighting back. And across the frontier, the legend of the human rancher and the alien outlaw was only beginning to rise. The desert stretched endless and quiet as Jack and Lyra reached the edge of Dust Haven. The small town shimmered under the hot suns, built from old metal and sandstone with windmills turning slowly in the dry wind. It looked peaceful from a distance, but peace on Varen 5 was always a lie. Lyra pulled her hood low to hide her silver skin. Keep your head down, she said softly. This town belongs to traders and thieves. Half of them work for the Syndicate. Jack nodded, adjusting his hat. Then let's blend in like the rest. They parked the hover cart behind an old tavern called the Broken Comet. A rusted sign swung in the wind. Inside, smoke and laughter filled the air. Alien miners sat with humans, playing cards and drinking Blue Fire whiskey. Jack's eyes widened when he spotted a familiar face behind the counter, a broad-shouldered man with a scar down his cheek. Cole, Jack muttered. Lyra tilted her head. Friend of yours? Old friend, Jack said quietly. Traded parts with him years ago. Cole looked up and froze. Jack Harlan. By the stars, you're still alive. He came around the counter and hugged him hard. I heard Dust Creek burned. Thought you were gone. Almost was, Jack said, glancing at Lyra. I need help, Cole. We're being hunted. Cole's eyes flicked toward her, sharp and curious. You picked a strange travel partner. She's the reason I'm still breathing, Jack replied. We just need rest, fuel, and maybe a way off this planet. Cole nodded slowly. You'll get what you need, brother. My outpost is yours. He looked at Lyra again, forcing a smile. You can trust me. But Lyra's instincts whispered danger. Her alien senses caught the faint hum of hidden transmitters under the floor. She said nothing, only watched as Cole poured drinks and called for food. That night, Jack slept in a small room above the tavern. He was exhausted. For the first time in days, he felt almost safe. Lyra didn't sleep. She stood near the window, watching the streets. Shadows moved between the buildings, too quiet, too many. Her hand went to her gun. Then she heard it, the soft click of a communicator downstairs. A man's voice whispered, confirmed. The alien outlaw is here. Send a capture team before dawn. Lyra's heart turned cold. She rushed to Jack's room and shook him awake. We have to go now. Jack blinked, confused. What? Why?
Your friend called them, she said.
He's selling us. Before he could answer, footsteps thundered up the stairs. The door burst open. Cole stood there holding a blaster, shame in his eyes. Jack, he said quietly, I didn't want this. But the bounty on her head, it's enough to buy 10 ranches. I'm sorry. Jack rose slowly, fury burning in his chest. Sorry won't stop me from breaking your jaw, Cole. Cole's men stormed in. Lyra moved first, fast as lightning. Her plasma gun flashed blue, dropping 2 guards. Jack grabbed his rifle and fired at the doorway. The tavern shook with chaos. Back door, Lyra shouted. They ran through the kitchen, smoke filling the air. Cole fired after them, yelling, They won't make it out alive. Outside, the night exploded with blaster fire. The Syndicate capture team had arrived, armored troopers and hover drones. The alley lit up red. Jack took cover behind a crate, shooting back. We're trapped! Lyra's eyes darted toward the rooftops. Not yet. She fired at a fuel tank beside the tavern. It erupted in a wall of flame, shaking the ground. The shockwave threw soldiers off balance. Run! They dashed into the chaos, flames reflecting off the metal walls. A hoverbike roared nearby. Jack jumped on it, pulling Lyra up behind him. Hold on! They sped through the narrow streets as fire painted the sky. Behind them, Dust Haven burned, the betrayal of a friend lighting up the night. When they finally reached open desert, Jack slowed, his hands shaking. He was my friend, he said softly. I trusted him. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. On Varen 5, trust is a weapon. He used it against you. Don't let it break you. Jack nodded, staring at the stars. Next time someone betrays us, I won't just run. I'll fight. The hoverbike hummed as they vanished into the dunes. In the distance, Dust Haven's flames faded into smoke. For the first time, Lyra looked at Jack not just as a companion, but as something more. You humans, she said softly. You lose everything, and still you keep standing. Jack gave a tired smile. That's what makes us dangerous. The night wind carried their voices away, leaving only the sound of the bike cutting through the dark. They didn't know where the road would lead next, but one thing was clear. The bounty hunters had awakened something they couldn't kill, a human who had lost everything, and an alien outlaw who had found something worth dying for. The desert night was cold and silent after the flames of Dust Haven faded behind them. Jack and Lyra rode the hoverbike across the dunes, the twin moons glowing pale above. Smoke still trailed in the distance, a reminder of betrayal and fire. Neither spoke for a long time. The wind howled, carrying sand across their faces. Jack's jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Lyra finally broke the silence. You don't have to blame yourself for your friend, she said softly. Jack shook his head. He didn't just sell you out, Lyra. He sold me too. And I let him get close enough to do it. He's gone now, she said. Let him stay in the dust. But both of them knew Dust Haven wasn't the end, it was just another beginning. The Syndicate would double the bounty after what happened. By dawn, they reached the edge of a canyon filled with strange blue mist. Lyra slowed the bike. There, she pointed. An old Syndicate cruiser crashed here years ago. If its core still works, we can rebuild the ship's jump drive and leave this planet. Jack smiled faintly. You really think we can fly our way out? Her eyes glowed brighter. I don't think. I know. They climbed down into the canyon. Metal ruins lay half buried in rock. The crashed ship looked like a sleeping beast half covered in dust and vines. Lyra touched the hull gently. Home once. Prison now. Inside, the air was stale and filled with old sparks. Broken screens flickered weak light. Jack helped her clear a path to the reactor room. Hours passed as they worked. Jack handled the heavy wiring while Lyra rerouted power through glowing alien panels. For a moment, they looked almost like partners, human and alien working side by side against the galaxy itself. Then the ground trembled. A low hum filled the air. Lyra froze. Engines, she whispered. They found us. Jack ran to the opening. Through the mist, 3 Syndicate gunships descended, their lights cutting through the fog. Troops poured out in black armor, plasma rifles ready. Lyra grabbed her weapon. They're coming from both sides. No way out. Jack looked at the reactor. Then we hold them here. The Syndicate soldiers entered the wreckage, their boots echoing on metal. The first wave came fast. Jack fired his rifle, hitting one square in the chest. Lyra moved beside him, her blue bolt slicing through the shadows. Sparks and smoke filled the air. They fell back deeper into the ship as more soldiers came. Lyra shouted, "Jack, the core's overloading. We can use it." He frowned. "Use it how?" "Overload it! It'll blow the ship sky high and take them with it." Jack's eyes widened. "We won't survive that." She met his gaze. "Maybe not, but if we don't stop them, no one will." He hesitated for a heartbeat, then nodded. "Do it!" Lyra sprinted to the reactor, her fingers flying across the console. Sparks burst around her. 5 minutes till detonation," she called. Jack covered her, reloading again and again as Syndicate troops closed in. Plasma fire filled the corridors. A blast hit near his shoulder, burning his sleeve. Pain shot through him, but he didn't stop. 2 minutes. Lyra turned and saw a soldier aiming at Jack. She didn't think. She ran forward, shoving him aside. The bolt struck her instead, tearing through her armor. She fell to the floor, her weapon clattering away. "Lyra!" Jack shouted, catching her before she hit the ground. Her breathing was weak, her silver blood glowing faintly in the dim light. "Jack, you have to go," she whispered. "The ship's going to blow. Not without you." Her hand touched his cheek. "You humans. Always trying to save what you can't." She smiled weakly. "That's why I fought for your kind." Jack's throat tightened. He lifted her in his arms, running through smoke and flame. The ground shook violently. The core was reaching its limit. At the outer hatch, he saw a half-buried escape pod. He kicked it open, placed her inside, and climbed in as explosions ripped through the wreck. The pod launched just as the cruiser erupted in a blinding flash. The blast lit up the canyon like a second sunrise. Metal debris rained down for miles. Inside the pod, Jack held her hand, whispering, "Stay with me, Lyra. You can't leave now." She opened her eyes slowly, her voice faint but steady. "You fight like a legend, human." Then she closed her eyes, her breathing soft and slow. Jack looked out through the small window. The desert below burned and the Syndicate ships were gone, destroyed by their own greed. He leaned back, eyes heavy with exhaustion and pain, and whispered, "Then let this be our freedom." The escape pod drifted into the rising dawn, leaving behind the smoke, the battle, and the beginning of a legend that would soon spread across every star. The desert was quiet again. The battle had ended days ago, but its scars still burned across the red sands of Varan 5. Pieces of Syndicate gunships lay twisted and broken under the pale suns. The wind carried the smell of smoke and iron. Far from the wreck, an escape pod had crashed near the old Dust Creek ranch. The pod door opened with a hiss and Jack stepped out, his clothes torn, his hands black with soot. In his arms he carried Lyra, unconscious, her silver skin faintly glowing in the light. He laid her gently on the ground. "Come on, Lyra," he whispered. "You made it through worse." For a long time she didn't move. Then slowly her eyes opened. Blue light flickered weakly inside them. "We survived." Jack smiled through the dust on his face. "Barely. But yeah, we're still here." She tried to sit up, wincing from her wounds. "The Syndicate?" "Gone," Jack said quietly. "You blew their ships sky high. They won't be hunting anyone for a while." She looked at him, half smiling. "Then I suppose we're free." "Free," he repeated softly, as if testing the word for the first time. Days passed. Jack rebuilt what was left of his ranch. The fences, the barns, even the old windmill all rose again piece by piece. Lyra helped him, her alien tools humming with soft light. Where human hands built with wood and metal, she added strange silver alloys and glowing panels. Soon, Dust Creek wasn't just a ranch anymore, it was something new. Machines moved on solar rails, crops grew faster under blue light fields, and the water pumps sang with power drawn from alien crystals. Every night, they sat on the porch under the twin moons, talking about everything and nothing. Jack told her about Earth, about green fields, blue oceans, and quiet rain. Lyra listened, eyes soft like she was imagining it. "Maybe one day I'll see it," she said. "Maybe one day you'll see better than Earth," Jack replied. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she was silent. But every evening her smile lasted a little longer. Then the rumors began. Travelers spoke of a human rancher and a silver-skinned outlaw who destroyed a syndicate fleet. They said he tamed a gunslinger from the stars. Others said she saved him from an army of hunters. Nobody knew the truth, but everyone told the story. In the bars of Dust Haven, in the mining camps, on cargo ships and outposts, they whispered the same name with awe, the legend of Varan 5, and they said, "Never cross a human and his outlaw." One evening, as the wind sang through the canyons, Lyra stood near the rebuilt barn watching the horizon. Jack joined her, carrying 2 mugs of warm brew. "You still thinking about leaving?" he asked. She hesitated. "I should. If the syndicate ever rises again, they'll come for me. And you?" Jack took a sip and smiled. "Then they'll find a rancher with a rifle and an alien with a faster draw." "Not exactly easy prey," Lyra turned to him. "You'd really fight again?" He met her eyes. "I already did. For you." For a moment, neither spoke. The stars reflected in her eyes. "You humans," she whispered, "always risking everything for someone else." "That's what makes us human," Jack said quietly. She stepped closer, her voice softer than the wind. "And maybe that's what makes me want to stay." He didn't answer. He just smiled. Weeks turned into months. The ranch became a beacon in the desert, a place where humans and aliens could trade, rest, and find safety. Miners brought food, traders brought stories, and no one asked questions. Some nights, a group of children would sneak close to the fence, hoping to see the silver outlaw with glowing eyes and the human who rode beside her. Lyra would smile and toss them a piece of fruit or a sparkstone that glowed in the dark. Jack always laughed. "You're going to turn this ranch into a legend." She'd glance at him with that calm, teasing tone. "I thought it already was." One night, as they watched the stars, a bright light streaked across the sky, a ship entering the planet's atmosphere. Lyra's hand rested on her blaster out of habit. But Jack shook his head. "Not hunters. Look at the pattern, it's a transport." The ship landed far on the horizon. Refugees spilled out, humans, aliens, families escaping syndicate worlds. They had nothing but hope. Lyra watched them, then looked at Jack. "We can help them." He nodded. "Yeah, we can." And just like that, Dust Creek became something bigger than a ranch. It became a home, a place for the lost, the hunted, the broken. Years later, when people spoke of Varan 5, they told a story passed from planet to planet. About a man who waited for a bride from Earth and met an alien outlaw instead. About fire and betrayal, courage and love. About a ranch that became a legend. Some said they still rode across the dunes together, protecting those who couldn't fight. Others said they vanished into the stars, leaving only footprints in the dust. But everyone agreed on one thing. The day the human and the alien stood together, the galaxy changed forever.